on the same idea, that's how I came up with my novel Plague Year, which was out last summer and is now, I'm now an international sensation. I love saying that. The book is sold in Germany, Spain. There are other deals that are coming together. Because of this book, I've sold short stories in the Czech Republic, Israel, and Turkey. And I'm hoping that those short stories will, garner more interest in my work. I'll get to be published in more cool foreign languages that I have no idea what it says. Plague Year, same kind of idea. It was an environmental thing. I'm a lifelong skier and backpacker. Kind of while I'm on the subject, two friends and I, one of whom is a professional cinematographer, released an unbelievable book trailer for the Plague Year series. It's called 4 Minutes Above 10,000 Feet. It's available on my website. It's available on YouTube. If you just type in Jeff Carlson or Plague War, I'll pop up right there. It's just a 4-minute short film. It's full of action and scary stuff. Plague Year was the same kind of thing. It originated from an idea of about a different environment and like looking at things in a different way. I love my freaky blind amphibian starfish down there in the ice, and they've been there for thousands of years, and they've developed empires that have risen and fallen, and they've never had any concept of the outside world. To them, the world ends at the top of the frozen sky. Plague Year was kind of looking at things a different way. I'm a lifelong skier and backpacker, and never wanted to have to go back to work. We'd be out there having a great time with my brother, our buddies, we'd be skiing all weekend. Oh man, it's Sunday night, we got to drive home. And I started to think, what if we couldn't go home again? And then I started to think, what if nobody could ever go home again? And of course I live in Northern California near Lake Tahoe, and as a little boy we used to drive through Donner Pass all the time. And as a little 8-year-old boy, I was darkly fascinated by the Donner Party and why they were driven to these extremes. It was just kind of part of our, cultural heritage in the area. And my mother, bless her heart, would say things like, "Well, Jeff, Jeffrey, if our car went into an embankment in the snow and we were stuck here, and the only way to survive, was to take that horrible step of cannibalism, I would want you guys to eat me to stay alive." What a horrible thing to say to an impressionable 8-year-old child. Now, as a father myself, now I totally get it. I would lay myself down in front of the oncoming bus if that would save my own sons. I get it. I totally get where she was coming from. But those ideas were kind of ticking around in my brain. And then as a skier and a backpacker, not wanting to go back home, I started to look around and think, what if we couldn't go home? Originally in this novel, which has now become a trilogy, the problem was a virus. But I couldn't make a virus obey a barrier. The virus kept coming up, all the way over the mountain and killing everybody. And if everybody's dead, you really don't have a story. I'm very into science. I read a lot of publications. I go to science fiction conventions. I love to go to those science panels and hear, these astrophysicists and molecular biologists and all these guys just talk about their stuff. It's just fascinating. I mean, it's just amazing stuff. And I, kind of stumbled into nanotech, because you could build this stuff, and of course now that the book is out, it's awesome. CNN did like this big expose on the nanotech industry, and I mean they really are doing this stuff now. Not quite at the level of the nanobots in my books, but there are people in private labs, some military, some civilian, that aren't publishing their work. We don't know how far along they are. If you posit a couple advances, the nanobots in my book are not far-fetched at all. And in my book, they're designed to target malignant tissues and cancer, but they're still a prototype. And of course, there's an act of industrial espionage, and the nanotech breaks loose of the lab before it's ready, and well, it devours all warm-blooded life across the planet below 10,000 feet, where it self-destructs at low air densities due to a hyperbaric fuse, which is what they were using as one of their controls in the lab before it was pirated out through the airlock, and chaos ensues. This was an absolutely fantastic book to write, a fantastic fun, just full of chaos and excellent dynamics with the characters. The people who've survived are full of guilt and trauma, and some of them are halfway insane themselves, and they're all struggling their best to deal with it. It's kind of a dark concept, everybody dies, but the people who are left, the book is really about human ingenuity and strength and the best of what's in people, our cleverness, our intelligence, our ability to overcome pain and hurt and alienation and suffering and all this stuff, because I think people are really, really cool, and I'm happy to be a person. But you can't just have like the Mary Poppins version of Plague Year. It just doesn't work. It's a dark idea. you have to kind of follow it through. And you know, so here I am now. My second novel has just come out, and that's Plague War, which is a sequel. My editors and publishers were like, wow, this book is awesome. We think it will do well. What a great concept. They said, can you give us more? I had originally intended to do it as a standalone, and I said to them, I said, well, you know, there are still a few people alive at the end of the first book, and as long as you have 3 people, you have a story. I mean, there's much more than that left alive. And the cool part for me, most of the book takes place in California and Colorado. These are places that I know. I ski there, I hike there, I know people there, and I could bring that realism of the biosphere and the ecology. And there's all kinds of cool things that happen. If you remove all the mammals and birds below 10,000 feet across the planet, there will be catastrophic environmental consequences. You get into cool stuff like accelerated niche species evolution with the insects. I got to speak with evolutionary biologists at Rutgers and Cornell. I have a stepbrother who's a special forces major. I made some good contacts in the United States Air Force. You know, spoke with them, got all the technical stuff, you know, right, because that's important. I mean, this book it could actually happen. This could happen tomorrow. And then Plague War, I tried to expand the scope a little more. That's all in the background of the first book, you know, what's happening in the Afghanistan mountains, in the Himalayas, you know, the Alps, you know, our allies who are trying to develop their own nanotech to save us all, like in India and the Indian Himalayas. In Plague War, I expanded the scope a little bit more, brought in a few more point of view characters, and started talking about, you know, what would happen next. Without giving too much away, clearly there is a war in the book, and there's still a plague. It's called Plague War, and the first book is Plague Year, and I'm currently about halfway through the third book to complete the trilogy, which has the working title of Mind Plague, and it has a whole new cool bad guy, and you know, things go crazy again, and it's fun to just kind of keep, you know, ratcheting that up and backing the bad guys into a corner and see how they can possibly overcome these horrible odds. I think I'm beginning to run a little bit long on the time that the guys over at Starship Sofa asked me to do. I'm going to try and wrap up here with some bright ideas. I do encourage everyone to come by my website, which is jverse.com. J as in Jeff, verse as in universe. jverse.com. I have there's free excerpts of both books there. There's a couple free short stories, my blog, fun photos. There's a fun contest there. If you can answer some really obscure, tough, mind-croggling science fiction trivia ideas, I will name a character after you or a friend in one of my upcoming novels, and of course they'll die horribly. They'll have their, you know, face ripped off by some kind of freaky alien life form, or they'll be, you know, slowly disintegrated alive by the nanotech. But it's still fun. You know, I got a blog there, and again, the book trailer. I heartily encourage everyone to go check out the book trailer. We're very, very excited about it. It has amazingly high production values for something that really just cost me a handful of sandwiches, and we had to license some songs for the soundtrack. You know, my buddy Adad Warda, total mastermind, put a bunch of days into it, brought in some CGI, and it was filmed, you know, up there in the Sierras, in the snow, not quite really at 10,000 feet, but really close. It looks like we're at 10,000 feet, and we're running around in the snow. And again, we're billing it as the Blair Witch Project meets Alive, which of course is the story of the Brazilian soccer team that was lost in the Andes, and horrible things happened to them. We're billing it as the Blair Witch Project meets Alive, meets the new Andromeda strain. Just kind of a lot of cool ideas. I got a million more things to talk about, but don't want to go too long here. Again, come by my website. I totally welcome correspondence. Love to hear from people. They always have some neat ideas. I got I got a pack of people now that are forwarding me more stuff about nanotech. They're, you know, real life researchers themselves, or they're just into it. They forward me a bunch of cool stuff. I get to incorporate that into my work. Always looking for more cool ideas. Thank you for your time. I hope you had fun, because I did too. It was cool. Thank you very much.